And welcome back to another edition of Then and Now. I'm Matt Present.
And I'm Nick Yor.
This week, we pivot to the football field and one of the most successful programs in the Commonwealth.
We have Westfield head football coach Kyle Simmons joining us on episode 4 of Then and Now.
And welcome back here on Then and Now. We're joined by head coach Kyle Simmons of Westfield High School and one of the most successful football programs over the course of the last decade, including 3 consecutive state championships. Coach, appreciate you joining us. And how have things been over the course of this summer? I know you guys did get a season in, unlike some winter and spring sports, but what has it been like working through this off season during the pandemic?
Yeah, well, from a football standpoint, it's basically been a standstill. Our hands have been pretty much tied as far as what we're allowed to do and how we're allowed to interact with the kids. So, I know the kids are out there on their own, getting some work in, especially since the parks have opened. Those that have equipment at home, weights and things like that. I know everybody's clamoring to get a hold of as much equipment as they can and trying to get their workouts in. So I know the effort's being made out there, but my ability to be involved has been minimum.
Yeah, so going off that, you've been coaching 20 plus years. How crazy has this off-season looked compared to others, since you can't really have contact, you don't really have that summer camp and stuff like that? Just how different is it?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I don't think we're really going to appreciate the difference it's going to make until we actually get back out on the field and start to work again. But I think from a football standpoint, I'm concerned about numbers, because in an area like Fairfax County, we were already seeing numbers dwindle for football, and I'm just concerned about what this is going to continue to do to the numbers if we're able to get back at it at some point in this season coming up. But if we do get back at it, I think we're going to see kids in all different levels of conditioning. Certainly we're going to be behind when it comes to the X's and O's part that we generally are able to get a couple camps in prior to the season starting. I think kids are going to be behind as far as strength goes. The good news is everybody's in the same boat for the most part. I think down in the rest of the state, things are opening up more quickly, and Fairfax County is always under different restraints than everybody else in the state. But Westfield's celebrated its 20th anniversary this year, and in those 20 years, we've had 9/11, we've had the sniper, and now we've had this. So those are some pretty incredible experiences to have had in a 20-year span.
Certainly does put it into perspective. We'll get back to the X's and O's a little bit later in the show, talk about what you have coming up for this season and your recent years. But let's go back in your coaching career a little bit to where it began. And you come out of Salisbury as a defensive end. How did you turn that playing career into a football career, a coaching career? Where did that begin?
It's a weird story. So I graduated with a degree in elementary education. So I was teaching 5th grade at Fairview Elementary, which is over near Robinson and Lake Braddock. I really had never thought about coaching, but I had a parent who was a baseball coach at Lake Braddock, knew Francis Dahl well, who was the head football coach at Lake Braddock, knew me and my love of sports and interacting with his son in my 5th grade classroom. Said, hey, you ought to go over and talk to Francis Dahl. He's got a great program over there. You would really be good at coaching. So I went over, met Francis Dahl. He hired me, and that was the beginning of my coaching career at Lake Braddock. I was there from 93 until 99 when Francis stepped down to be the DSA at Westfield.
Yeah, so then you kind of move over to Westfield that same year. 2000 is the first year of the school, and this is something I didn't know. You took over for Coach Tom Verbanek in 2011. I know Tom from covering a couple games at Flint Hill where he took over. Can you kind of just explain that whole situation in 2011, kind of give fans a behind-the-scene look of kind of what went down there? Because I know Coach is very successful and then took over for Flint Hill, but obviously left the program in great hands with yourself.
Yeah, so let me kind of finish that story a little bit. So Francis Dahl became the DSA at Westfield, and he and Tom Verbanek were college roommates. And he hired Tom as the head football coach, Tom had been at Fairfax High School. I knew of Tom and interacted a little bit with him, but I basically begged Tom for a job. He had hired the DC from Lake Braddock to come over, so he was there, and a couple other coaches from Lake Braddock had joined. I finally got him to hire me, but I didn't want to stay at Fairview Elementary. My degree only went up to middle school, so I got a job teaching biology at Rachel Carson Middle School. And for the first few years, I made the decision I wanted to be a future head coach. And I knew if I wanted to be a head coach, I had to be able to get in the building. So I went back to school while I was teaching, got my endorsement in PE, and in the winter of 2005, a PE job opened at Westfield. I was coaching there at the time as an assistant, and the principal at Rachel Carson allowed me to leave and join Westfield in 2005. So I was an assistant in 2005. Then when Carol Craig stepped down as the defensive coordinator, I took over as defensive coordinator in 2006. Of course, we win a state championship in 2007. Tom steps down to become the head baseball coach at Flint Hill, and that's when I interviewed for the job and got it. But, you know, Tom really was my mentor. I was very blessed to have come in contact with him. He really has made me the coach that I am today, just through the example he set and the knowledge that he had. So, you know, I was a very different coach in 2000, even probably all the way up until 2005. But once I got on board there as a teacher and got to interact with Tom more, and really just changed my perspective of what my job as a coach was. And, you know, he really is the one that put me in position to become a head coach in 2011 when he stepped down.
Now, talk us through what you've done to put your own stamp on the program since taking over. I read that you have used the same playbook since 2000, which I think is interesting just because so many high schools have deviated so much in the way they play football now, going away from kind of the wishbone and going to such a spread offense. How have you managed to stay consistent through the years and be successful and still put your own mark on the program?
Yeah, so from an X's and O's standpoint, I would say that there have been more of tweaks than any wholesale changes. We still run inside, outside zone, power. RPOs are something that have come along a lot more since Tom left. We got into it a little bit when he was there. Defensively, we run an even and an odd front, but the concepts are still very much the same. So from an X's and O and cultural standpoint, Tom and I are very similar, and there was very little that I wanted to change. If there is anything that's maybe a little bit different, and I think Tom probably would have made these changes if he had stayed there, but you know, the video part, the watching film part has changed drastically with Huddle. And then you have our practice plan. Tom was trying to work towards a more regimented, structured practice plan. It's just that, you know, you've got older coaches who have done it one way, and sometimes it's hard to get people to buy into that. But we now run a practice plan that is much more like a college practice plan. It's very structured. It's based on times and periods. So we've really tried to be very efficient with our practice. And then maybe the only other thing is that I've put effort into these team shops and the ability to try to fundraise through the community with shops that now are online, where people can order and pay online and have it delivered right to their house. So I do spend time trying to take advantage of that to get some funds back into our program.
Yeah, that's great causes all around the program, but talking more on the field, I mean, we've had an array of talent come through the Westfield program since they opened their doors in 2000. And you just kind of explained some of the fans and people out there what it's like coaching some of these future NFL players while they're in high school. Obviously, the Glennon brothers, Eddie Royal, and then Evan Royster all came through Westfield.
So when I came to Westfield in 2000, and we had several of those guys on board, I was still a relatively young coach, so I really didn't have the experience to evaluate a kid at a high school level and understand and appreciate where that potential might put them down the road. but, you know, you mentioned some names there. Sean Glennon, tremendous leader. Eddie Royal, just scary, quick, and fast, and the ability to change direction and run side, you know, just use the entire field. Just incredibly scary. Mikey, a really strong arm, just incredibly strong arm, hard worker. You know, of course, he had the physique. He was so tall and long. In 2007, I was defense coordinator, and we had a period called 20 and in, where our ones versus our ones on defense and offense, 20 yards.
Yep.
You know, you either score or get stopped, and those were battles. I mean, incredible battles. We were strong on defense. Of course, they had Mikey and Evan, and the thing I remember about Mikey is how quickly he could get the ball out of his hands. That was a time in which we just started running RPOs, and we had a bubble route that we would run. We'd have a run play called inside zone, and Mikey had the decision. If the outside linebacker was tucked in too far, he'd take the ball and turn and throw that bubble route. And how quickly he could get the ball there was just phenomenal. And then you had Evan, you know, who went on to be the leading rusher at Penn State. And I'll tell you a funny story about him. We were playing Hayfield, and Hayfield gets the ball to open, and they drive down the field, and we're bleeding all over the place defensively, and they cough the ball up. So we get our defense on the sidelines. We're trying to make adjustments. Evan gets the ball in the first play, scores. All right, so enough of that. We're out, back on the field defensively. We're still bleeding a little bit, trying to make adjustments on the fly. We stop them. Offense gets the ball. First play, Evan scores again. Our defense coordinator at the time says to Tom, "Will you stop scoring? We're trying to fix things over here." So Evan was just scary talented, and the ability to run that inside-outside zone and have the patience, you know, to see the first and second levels, he was phenomenal at.
Obviously, you mentioned off the top the 3 consecutive state titles, and we'll get to that in a second, but it started with a championship in 2003. What do you remember most about that team that made it so special?
They were just really talented, really talented. We went to, we played that game at UVA, or no, I'm sorry, we played that game in Richmond against Lansdowne, who had just, you know, they had talent all over the place, and they were running the wide open scheme, and which was pretty new to high school at that time. And we had that talent, but we just had really good role players in all the other areas, just good high school football players that were really bought in and could play those supportive roles. We had several players on that team that went on to play at schools like Shepherd. So, you know, that team was loaded. And I don't think we knew it. You know, I think Tom had a way about, you know, you just go out there and play the game. You're not flashy. We're not out here to talk about it. Let's just go play the game, work hard, and we'll get as far as we can get.
Yeah, I think that's what surprises a lot of people. They think they hear these powerhouses. I think Westfield's been a dominant forever since the 90s and the 80s, but it just, you know, it started in 2000 and then 2003, 2007, and then you take over in 2011, and then the big run comes obviously with the 3 straight state championships and that enormous winning streak. I know you probably didn't think you were going to be able to surpass Tom's success when you took over, but just being able to not only continue that and then expand on top of his success, what do you think was the biggest reason for that once you took over?
Well, I think even though Tom wasn't coaching for those championships, he played a big part in that. You know, we have a saying at Westfield, forever linked, and, you know, what he's passed along and the what he had built there prior allowed me to just kind of take over and keep the whole thing moving. You got to have a lot of things go your way to win a state championship. I mean, even to get to a state championship, you got to have some luck. And, you know, prior to 2015, we had made it to the regional championship 4 years in a row. I mean, we've been in the regional championship football game 9 years in a row now. We had to lose 4 times in a row to even get an opportunity to play in the state championship. So Westfield from 2000 has built a great culture, really good buy-in, community support. We try to work really hard to operate the right way. not only on the football field, but within the school, so that we get the support of our administration and our teachers. And we want to be looked at as not just a football program, but a classy football program.
Yeah, what would you say is that the most memorable or something that you take away from that run? That's 3 straight state championships and that winning streak. What do you think is the biggest, the most or the biggest moment of that run in your opinion?
Wow, I can remember. I've been part of the 2003 and 2007 state championships, so I had been part of that and knew how awesome that was. When we beat South County in 2015, and I looked around and watched my coaches celebrate because they were going to go to a state championship, and most of them, this was the first one that they had ever been a part of. And I realized that, wow, this means something to me, but I have got to experience this before. I have 2 rings, and these guys, the joy on their faces that they were going to get to do this was so awesome. And then certainly winning in 2015 in triple overtime, with a defensive stop, the roar, the celebration of the kids, the feeling for those next, I don't know, couple months, to be able to go back to school that week, be in school for 1 week, have 2 weeks of winter break to just, celebrate and have that trophy sitting in your living room, and all the community pride and the school pride. Those are feelings that just make you very proud.
Through that streak, just give me a sense. I mean, there's got to be so much excitement when it's building and you're winning, but how much pressure was there as you continued to win and continued to raise that bar that you felt or your team felt in terms of needing to continue to win and maintain that?
I don't think the first one, the 2015, was any near the pressure of 2017. The way I kind of frame it in my mind is 2015 was, for one, personally, me as a head coach winning my first state championship as a head coach, but also for the school and having not been there since 2007 to kind of get back on the map a little bit. 2016, that was a year where I felt like it was a program statement, kind of like saying, all right, that wasn't a fluke in 2015. We got a program here and we can play some football. So the rest of you can say all of what you want to say, but, we won it again. So I felt proud of our program for that win. 2017 was just straight stress and pressure, because once we won it in 2017, it was just relief. It was like, because you do have all these expectations from people, and they think you're trying to rise to the challenge of doing it again. So yeah, 2017 was definitely the most stressful for me.
And you talk about some of the key players from that run: Eugene Asante, Taylor Moore, and Noah Kim, just to name a couple. But those are 3 guys going to Power 5 schools: UNC, Wake Forest, and Michigan State. You take those guys in at freshmen. What do you and your staff do in particular to kind of build these guys into future Division I Power 5 players, which you can see you have so many of, which is so rare at the public school level?
So that's something I've learned. You don't build those players in the Power 5. They've got it already. You're giving them the opportunity. You're putting them in a position. It doesn't matter if you're 0-10 or 15-0. If you're as good as those guys, college coaches are going to find you. So those kids were just extremely talented. I think it's more about showcasing their talent by having a quality program, teaching them that it's not about an individual. It's about a team effort to play within a scheme. For a lot of these kids, they've been able all through their athletic career to pretty much do whatever they wanted on the court or on the field and have success. And sometimes you got to break some of those habits about, okay, there's some other good dudes on the other side, and we need to work within what we do and also that you have a lot of people trying to work for you who maybe don't get their name in the paper. And let's do them justice also by playing within the scheme and acting the right way and doing things the right way. So, and then, you know, I think there is part of it too. We have a big weight room program. That's something that's really important to us. So that's something that's helped those guys develop so that they are physically prepared to play at that next level. We're a big film study football team. So they're going to go to those programs knowing how to watch film, knowing how to game plan. And then I would say our adjustments. We adjust during the game, not like a college team, but, you know, those teams are a lot about adjustments. So our kids are going to go on to play college football knowing how that all works and having had experience with that.
You talk about the different things that you do with your program and that those guys are a part of that help them be successful at the next level. But what is it that you've learned going through the recruiting process with them about working with the college coaches and trying to find the best fit for them at the next level?
That's a great question, because I think kids and families are at a huge disadvantage. I mean, the guys that are recruiting them do this for a job. I mean, it's their business. And for a lot of these kids, I mean, this is like head spinning type of stuff. I mean, it is really, really difficult. The things that, you know, your grades, the better your grades are, the more opportunities you're going to have. You know, if you're a 3.0 plus, that opens up a heck of a lot more doors than a 2.5. So that's the one thing that I've learned. Size and speed are worth something. If you're a 6 foot O lineman who can just flat out kill it, it doesn't matter. You're 6 foot, and you're limited on the number of schools or the level you're going to be able to play just from the fact that you're 6 foot. I think every recruiter handles things differently. Some of them want to spend time with you and they want to talk to you and they want to gauge your character and they want to put eyeballs on you. Other recruiters, they're interested in your speed and how flashy you are and what you've done and your stats and those types of things. So the good news is if a kid wants to play at the next level, there's a home for him. There's somewhere that'll take him. But it's about finding the right fit. When it comes to recruiting, I'm kind of hands off with our guys, especially the high level guys, because, you know, if you're a Noah Kim or, you know, an Evan Royster, you've got everybody in your ear, everybody. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that to them. I let them know I'm here to support you. My role is to get the communication between you and the recruiter, who generally contacts me to have a discussion about the kid and to come set up a meeting with the kid. I'm kind of a background guy. You know, if I see him struggling or I feel like I can provide some assistance, I will. But I'm not going to be poking them every single day about what their decision is or what they're going to do. I just think there's a lot of pressure on them already.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Also, I'm sorry, let me say this. One piece of advice I give them is don't go chasing a bunch of camps and things that are asking a ton of money out of you. A kid can go and participate in a couple college camps and get the evaluation they need versus going to some of these combines and other things that I think people are taking advantage of kids and families for the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. You mentioned, because you have guys going at all different levels, not just to the Power Five, like the Shepherds, the Bridgewaters, like you said. But obviously, I got to ask you this question. It might get you in a little bit of trouble, but you are the person to ask. You've been on the Westfield program for all 20 years. In your opinion, maybe what is the best one or two Westfield teams that you think that there is out there since the school's creation in 2000?
So there's two of us that have been here since 2000, O-line coach Dan Keating and myself. And I don't think you'd get either one of us to answer that question.
Fair enough, Coach. Well,
Sorry.
A moment ago, you mentioned Noah Kim, and I'm sure, you know, he's big for your program in a variety of ways, not just what he did on the field, but coming back from injury in the way he did and going on to play at Michigan State. Let us in on some of what he brought to the program and his teammates, and also, when you have such a talented player like him, as you look forward to next year, how much do things change? I know you talked about kind of keeping the playbook and the offense the same, but how much do you kind of tailor it to a guy like him?
Yeah, well, Noah started for us for 3 years and only lost one football game in that span. So he won over 40 games, and we lost 2, but I don't hang one of them on him because he broke his femur in the second quarter. So I don't think it's fair to give him that loss. But, Noah has ice water running through his veins, which is probably the most impressive thing about him. Even as a 10th grader, he did not get flustered. He's got a really strong arm. He's smart. He's football smart. When I look back on his 10th grade season, after the season was over, I really took for granted. I was the play caller at that point, and I really took for granted how much he took off of my plate as far as tagging plays. And he knew, okay, coach, you don't have to tell me this within the play. I know that if it's this play and we don't have a tight end on the backside, that I've got to read this. And so he's got a lot of things going for him on top of his strong arm, and he's got good feet. And things are going to be incredibly different for us next year because I don't even know who the quarterback's going to be. So we may have to lean more on our running game. We might not be, we might win some games 21-14. It's hard to tell at this point until we can get out there and see who we got and what's going to happen. But I do think that we're going to be good on defense. When you're good on defense, you're good on special teams. So you got those 2 parts taken care of. We got a really strong backfield, and we got a couple of guys we can get the ball to in the air. We're talented on the offensive line. So we got a lot of really good parts. I'm just not sure, I think everybody's going to be simpler to start. I mean, we were never a 7-on-7 team, a 7-on-7, go to these things during the summer. But those are all been taken away from most of the high school teams that did them on a weekly basis. So things are going to look incredibly different if we get to play in the fall. I think things are going to be simpler, might be sloppy to begin with. And I think the war cry is going to be, where are you when playoffs come?
Yeah, no, we're running out of time here, so we'll wrap it up on this one, Coach. So like we said, you've been there for all 20 years at Westfield. So just got to ask you, what makes Westfield and the surrounding Chantilly area, really the whole thing, so special of a program and a place for you to call home these past 20 years and haven't really looked to go anywhere else?
Good people. I would say that's the number one reason. Our DSA, Terry Toll, is an incredibly hard worker, is a great communicator, always is looking to try to help and make us better. And she's a special person. Our principals, I've been under Dr. Copeland for my time as a head coach, but even the ones before him were all very supportive. The community, the parents are great. I know a lot of head coaches, struggle with their parents and feel that maybe sometimes that they're a little bit of a burden, but I've never felt that about our parents. Our parents are awesome people who have done nothing but be there for me and support the football team. And something Tom built from the very beginning and taught me was the way you behave and act in the school building during the school day determines a lot of the type of support you're going to get. If a teacher's having an issue with a kid, I'm the first person they're probably going to come to and ask for some assistance with. And how I decide to handle that situation, not only with the teacher, but with my players, is very important. And so the point I'm trying to make is there's just something that's been developed there within the school that is very positive. And we've had coaches come and go, but we have hired really incredible minds and people that really care about kids that I enjoy working with thoroughly and enjoy game planning and problem solving with. So it's just been a really good situation, good people, and I'm hoping to end my career there.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate you spending some time with us, and fingers crossed that you guys get back out there in the fall. Best of luck to you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
And our thanks again to head coach Cal Simmons of Westfield High for joining us this week on Then and Now.
You can catch Coach Simmons on the sideline in Chantilly, Virginia at Westfield High School this fall.
And you can catch us on DMVSTREAM.com and on social media at DMVSTREAM. We'll see you again next time on Then and Now.